And I believe we are up and running. I'm
Awesome.
Tim Schmidt, with Matt Galloway from the Topeka Capital-Journal. We're here at the Final Four in San Antonio. We're actually standing inside the Alamo Dome. It is free to the public day, so this place is a little insane. Where yesterday we kind of got to hang out. Today it's a little crazier. Interesting stuff kind of keeps coming out as you would expect leading up to a Final Four. When we look at Kansas at this point, what have you heard? What's the interesting news of the day in terms of the Jayhawks?
Well, the interesting news of the day, I mean, it's you get to this point, and with so many national folks, I mean, I think we saw about 250 to like 5,000 people at Sister Jean's media availability this morning. I'm sure that was some sort of a fire hazard, but you know, you get to the point in this season, and especially when you cover the team all season long, write a story a day, maybe a couple stories a day, you start to get, you have to get creative. You have to start to think of angles. You have to start to look for the Sister Jean of KU. And fortunately, I didn't uncover that, but I am working on a story that readers can look at later at hawkzone.com and CJ Online and the other Gatehouse Kansas publications. It's on what Clay Young, a walk-on senior for the Jayhawks, called the turning point of the season. It was the home loss to Oklahoma State, the Jayhawks' third home loss of the season. Never had happened under Bill Self. That night, they actually had, I think it was the 120-year anniversary, kind of a weird anniversary to recognize, but it was the program's 120-year anniversary. They had all sorts of players from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s at a banquet, and basically what Coach Bill Self did was he got up in front of everyone and just used his platform, instead of talking about, the tradition and everything, I'm sure that was in there, but he used it as kind of an impromptu Comedy Central roast of his team in kind of a harsh way. I mean, Devontae Graham about a week ago said it was the most awkward night of his life, and the next day, KU actually had what I think was the second most important moment of their season. Behind that banquet, you can call them neck and neck, but it was a team meeting, and a lot of times with championship teams, they'll always point to a team meeting. It can be kind of cliche, but this is one that Devontae Graham described as a come to Jesus meeting, and I talked to a few KU players about it today. It was kind of just an airing of grievances and things that they thought guys could be doing better, and since then, I mean, they had a couple of hiccups along the way. The season-ending loss at Oklahoma State again was one of those, but from that point on, the Big 12 really became KU's. They secured the 14th straight for the regular season, a new college record, and we've just seen this team look like it's having more fun. They look like they enjoy each other more. The chemistry is better, and it's something that I think is going to be an interesting read for any KU fans that are able to check it out.
Interesting to bring up the Big 12. Obviously, it was lauded as one of the top conferences, if not the top conference. The Big East, the new Big East, also a great year. Does this make a case now? Loyola Chicago comes, from a conference, obviously, a conference but not one that has the type of clout as those two in the Missouri Valley. But does this, seeing these two teams come through and those two being the two number one seeds, does it really say a lot about the conferences themselves and getting these teams tournament?
I think it does for sure. I mean, we heard Jay Wright say yesterday that coaches really earn their medal. Or I think he said this over the teleconference. They earn their stripes in the regular season. Tournament's more of a crapshoot. But I think that there is something to be said for the Big East and the Big 12 having a representation here. We've seen a number of Big East, Big 12 matchups in this tournament. K-State and Creighton in the opening round, KU and Seton Hall in the second round, Villanova defeating Texas Tech and West Virginia on the way to the Final Four. I think that those are two clear best conferences in the country when you look at the way that the Pac-12 had absolutely no presence in the tournament. The SEC kind of underwhelmed in a couple of ways after people thought they were having kind of a coming out party of a year. And the Big Ten, they've got Michigan in there. Michigan's one of the hottest teams in the country, but outside of that, you had Michigan State bowling. I think this is a game that might be for some bragging rights between those two conferences, but I think it's outside of everything. You can talk about the Devontae Graham, Jalen Brunson matchup. You talk about the Big 12 versus the Big East, and you can talk about the game 2 years ago. At the end of the day, what both coaches are stressing more than anything, and they've said this is simply Villanova versus Kansas, period, and they don't want their players thinking about anything else.
You talked yesterday about Larry Brown, and we talked about how Bill Self got a little starry-eyed, which I thought was just interesting. I've never seen him kind of go get that expression.
Fanboy, maybe.
A little bit, a little fanboying about Larry Brown, which I thought was great. It's kind of nice to see a different side of Bill. But today, Larry talking to the media, right?
Yeah, Larry actually, when KU was having their breakouts, was speaking to the media in the locker room. I was able to get the tail end of it and was able to get some audio out of that. And he ended up, somebody asked him just straight up, what's your role with this Kansas team? And he just flat out said, none. He's here as a fan of Bill Self in Kansas, with his ties, of course, with the '88 team and his time with the Jayhawks, and a fan of Jay Wright when he was coaching the Philadelphia 76ers. Jay Wright was at Villanova, and they became good friends. And he just said that he's an admirer of college basketball. I do think he's downplaying his siding with Kansas just a little bit. He was out there for the open practice. We saw him basically right up there with the transfers, the two Lawson brothers and Charlie Moore for Kansas. He's been kind of, every time he's around the team, he's been mentoring them, he's been giving them advice. Of course, all in an unofficial capacity. Right. We saw him talking to Malik Newman for an extended period of time, and I thought it was interesting. Bill Self was giving an interview at Center Court with CBS, and they talked about Larry Brown, who, of course, a large contingent of KU fans were here, and they all gave him a nice hand. But Bill said that if Larry Brown had not given him a grad assistant job after he tore up his knee at a camp with Larry Brown, it might have been, basically he has no idea where he would be right now. And that pivotal time that he spent on the KU staff as a grad assistant, along with a number of other guys that came through in that era, Greg Popovich, John Calipari, really that was kind of a transformational time. And Larry Brown, I mean, yesterday we talked about him being the best X's and O's guy. I'm sure he's going to give some advice to KU, but I mean, when you talk about coaching trees in basketball, there are few with as many branches as Larry Brown.
Now, I didn't think you talked twice about Air France in these day-to-day conversations. Give us an update on your story yesterday.
Shortly after we went off the air, we got a press release from KU, and they were confident enough to say that it's going to happen. So whatever's going on with Air France, I don't have to think about that anymore. I don't have to monitor any flights. Today, Bill confirmed that they're all en route. They're all going to be here. So barring
all being heard.
Svi Mikhailuk's parents from the Ukraine, Sylvia De Sousa's parents. I don't know which African country he's from off the top of my head. I forgot. And Udoka Azubuike's mother, who I wrote about, Florence, she is from Nigeria. She was the one having the issues with the visa and passport. He hasn't seen her in 6 years. I wrote about it for Hawkzone.com, and he basically, I asked him yesterday, were you scared when you came to the U.S. all alone? And he said no, because he grew up in kind of a lot of violence and poverty around him, and he got discovered at a basketball camp, as so often happens, and ended up coming to Florida, I think Jacksonville, and getting discovered and kind of working his way up the system. I think it was a risk that he and his mother were willing to take to get a better life, and he said that's what motivates him. So they're going to have their reunion tonight at the team hotel. I don't think that that's going to be in the public eye, but I'm going to, of course, ask. But it's going to be an emotional moment, and Coach Self said yesterday at his news conference, you want to avoid distractions at these things, but who in the heck is going to, say that they don't want this little bit of a distraction for Udoka Azubuike possibly? And also, I think it's going to help him play. I mean, how could you not with his mother? She's never seen him play basketball. He said she doesn't know anything about the sport, so I'm pretty sure as long as somebody tells her when he does this and hits the ball, or does this and grabs the ball, and does this and slams it in, that's a good thing, and I think that she's going to probably help him play a lot better.
Okay, let's take two questions off Kansas real quickly. Villanova digging in a little bit. Interesting, I was in their locker room talking to some of the guards about them and the way they play, and I asked one of I can't remember the guys with you. Actually, I can tell you. It was Colin Gillespie. What he thought about the fact that both teams were kind of guarded in, and was it easier to play against someone else who plays a similar style, or was it harder? He kind of repeated the question a little bit, but he did say, we're playing one of the best teams in terms of guard play in Kansas. When you look at this Villanova team, how do they match up, and what have you kind of heard in the last couple of days?
Well, I used in a headline for the first time ever the word doppelganger, and I think that was, pretty fitting. I think Ken Pomeroy has called this Villanova team one of the most efficient offensive teams that he's ever had in his system since he's been covering his advanced analytics. I think that is clearly pretty true. These are two teams that have sold out in the four-guard concept. Coach Self, because he's had to, because of the situations and the lack of front court depth that they've had in the last couple of years. But this is, Coach Brown kind of remarked about it. He would have never imagined Bill himself end up going with this, because the first thing that Bill kind of learned at Larry Brown's coaching university basically was, 2 in, 3 out, work inside out, 2 bigs. That's changed, and I think the game is changing. It's why we're seeing, it's basically the Golden State Warriors effect. You move the ball around, get quick possession, shoot a ton of threes. It's a far cry from a couple years ago when Coach Self called the three-pointer fool's gold, and used to live by the three, die by the three moniker, and I guess the old idiom and expression. But I think it's going to be a fascinating matchup for me. It's so different from Duke and KU. KU rose to the occasion against a much bigger Duke team. Svi Mikhailuk is not going to be guarding Marvin Bagley in this matchup. It's just going to be a much quicker game, a much faster game. It's going to be different. I think a lot of people would say Villanova does the things that KU does better. I don't necessarily buy that, but I do think it's going to be a matchup that's going to pose a lot of interesting questions. One of the matchups that I think is pretty fascinating is Udoka Azubuike and KU are actually going to have the size advantage in this matchup. Amari Spellman is their big 6'9" for Villanova. He can shoot the threes. He's shooting it at a 45% clip this season. Seeing how Udoka Azubuike can get to the outside and guard those threes is going to be important. I think it's going to be a key in this matchup and exactly how often he kind of pulls the trigger from beyond the arc.
Okay, now the question I have to ask, because I'm commuting from Austin, so I didn't get that until the morning. Did you get to say hi to Sister Jean this morning?
I did.
And how did that go?
I did not make it to Sister Jean, but I followed along with bated breath on Twitter and all my colleagues updating it. And you know, it's. I love Sister Jean. I think she's absolutely remarkable. I think it's, it could only happen at a Cinderella school like Loyola Chicago. Nobody would care if Kentucky had a Sister Jean. I think they'd probably vilify her a little bit. But one of the things that I loved was that she said basically the media, don't ever let anybody tell you what you do that isn't important. You guys are doing good work. That's good to hear in 2018. You don't always hear that. So she also kind of set NBA Twitter ablaze by saying she prefers the college game to the NBA, which that's basically just like poking a bear with NBA Twitter. But she's I guess to use a word, she's a blessing to kind of listen to and watch. And I'm hoping it goes till Monday, in my opinion. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Sure would. Matt Galloway, I'm Tim Schmidt. We'll be back again tomorrow. We'll also be here on Monday talking through. Thanks for listening and wherever you are across the webs. And by the way, nice and sunny.
Yeah, this is not too bad. I think I've had, when you talk about San Antonio in general, I think I've had enough Mexican food to last a lifetime, especially yesterday at the media event, and it's just been a blast. And I love the weather, I love the town, and the buildings, everything. It's been a blast. It's a great little city.
Tim, you know that he's moving down there.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.
Thank you.